guys, it's manager Kylie, and in today's video I'm going to share with you the important stats to watch during a basketball game. So in figuring out what stats to take and which stats are important to review with your basketball team, it's important to look at what you're trying to accomplish and which stats are going to help you figure out what you need to change to accomplish that goal. So today I'm going to share with you some important stats to keep track of and some of the reasons you want to keep track of those different stats. But if you guys are interested in more sports administration, coaching tips, and drills that you can use with your team, definitely hit the subscribe button, turn the bell so you get notified every time I upload, as I post a new video every single Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So there's a few stats that are good to keep track of when comparing yourself to your opponents. These include field goal attempts. So you want to see how many times you shot the ball versus how many times your opponent shot the ball. This is definitely helpful to see who had more control over the ball and who had more opportunity to win the game, as if you're able to shoot the ball more times, generally you have more opportunities to score. So it's definitely interesting to watch to see if your team is shooting more than the other team, or even to see how that shooting is going. One way to see how it's going is through effective field goal percentage. So this is adding up all your 2-point shots, and it actually gives a 1.5 number to all your 3-point shots so that they are weighted a little bit more. So you'd multiply the number of shots that you had that were 2-point shots by 1, and then you'd multiply all your 3-point shots by 1.5 so that they're weighted a little higher. And to see how many shots were actually go in, you're dividing this number by your total field goals attempted, just to see how many shots were effective and how many actually scored, and weighting on those 3-pointers that you made to see how many points were effective in your score. Another good one to compare to your opponent is both your free throws attempted and your free throw percentage to see how your team's doing. The line is a big key in games. It can make or break teams in whether or not they win, especially in close games that get into foul trouble and bonuses. So this can definitely change games. It's definitely important to keep track of both yours and your opponent's free throw percentage to see how they compare. Now there's a few other stats that you can keep track of that are more important for your team in particular, and this is your turnover ratio and your assist to turnover ratio, just to see how many turnovers you have in a game. Obviously you don't want to be turning over the ball, so it's definitely important to keep track of your turnovers. It's also important to keep track of your assist to your turnover ratio. You generally want that to be above 2 to 1. So for every 2 assists you have, you have 1 turnover. You generally want to have more assists than turnovers. You don't want to have more turnovers than assists, because that means you're really not moving the ball and then you're just turning it over. Other ones to keep track of are both your defensive and your offensive rebounds. It's to see how many times you're grabbing the ball, especially on the offensive rebounds, how many missed shots you have compared to how many offensive rebounds you have, to see how many times you're actually getting the ball when you miss that shot versus when the other team's getting it and is now in control of the game. Another one to keep track of is how many shots were taken from the paint. So how many shooting attempts from the paint or from outside the paint. This way you kind of understand where you're shooting the ball from and where your highest percentage shots are generally what is in the paint, to see how those are doing in relationship to some of your other shots. Another one to keep track of is your assist to field goal percentage. This allows you to compare how you're moving the ball to other games, so you're able to see are people passing the ball and sharing the ball with each other. This just shows that you have good ball control and are able to move the ball up and down the court through passes, and that your team is sharing the ball and getting it to where it needs to go for a good open shot. So having a good assist to field goal ratio definitely helps you in making sure that the ball is getting moved to the people that are open for the shots. One other stat that you'll see people keep track of, and this is especially in the NBA, is they'll give points to people based on how they do on the court. So this can be like a plus minus. So while you're on the court, if your team scores, has good assists, steals the ball, all that's positive points. And then while you're on the court, if there's turnovers, if the other team scores, if you commit fouls, that's all negative points. So you want to do all the positives while you're on the court, and you don't want the negatives to happen while you're on the court, and you get a score based on how many positive happens versus how many negatives happen while you're on the court. And now that score just shows how effective you are on the court. So this kind of shows how effective certain players are, certain player combinations are. You can do it for both individual players and player combinations to see, okay, player A and player B, every time they're on the court, they have a really high negative score, versus when player A and player C are together, they generally have a positive score. So you try to play player A and player C together more than you would play player A and player B together, just because they clearly are clashing in some way and aren't being effective on the court. It's definitely important to keep track of these stats and just to have an idea of where your team stands. Even if you just have them for yourself as the coach, it's nice to know where the team stands and what things you want to improve on in practice. These can help show you what you need to improve on and areas you want to focus on, if it's better coverage of of the ball, if it's better passing, making sure people are moving the ball. These will help show you what you need to focus on and where you can improve with your team. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. If there's any other stats that you think are important, definitely leave them in the comments down below. If you're interested in seeing a video like this for any other sport to figure out which stats you need to be watching for that specific sport, definitely let me know that in the comments down below. I'd be happy to give you that information. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you did, and I'll see you next Wednesday.